Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It, and I have finally gone ahead and seen Disney's live action remake of Mulan, and I will give you my surprising thoughts right after the jump. Real quick, if you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know about it. Mulan, 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 Mulan. So this has been, if there's ever a movie that encompasses the way that 2020 has gone. Mulan's release and subsequent issues that have happened in the release uh, pretty much sum it all up. Let me say this first before I give you my actual thoughts about the movie. I don't have an affinity for the 1998 animated film. I've never seen it. I am aware. I had the soundtrack and like the Christina Aguilera song, but I never actually saw the movie. 98 for me, I was in my junior year of high school, so I had stopped pretty much going to the movies to watch the animated Disney films because I was too cool for school with Lion King. And then eventually, obviously, got back into it. But that was in that window where Pocahontas and Mulan, also because they were more female centric, I just didn't have a desire to see them. So those films I missed in the theater. So I don't have an affinity for Mushu or the songs or any of that. Don't hold weight for me and don't value my review up or down in any way. The other thing is, I know that the actress who is playing Mulan has put her foot in her mouth and said some things that have been disparaging to people of certain ethnic backgrounds. I unfortunately am not of that ethnic background, and also all of that is way above my pay grade, so I don't really have a view on that. I do, but I'm not going to say it. But it doesn't affect how I feel about the film. I can separate that because I am not of that world. It's a little easier for me to do that. So I say all that to just say that I'm watching this film strictly on this movie alone, and I don't have anything else that is making me hate watch or angrily review this film or angrily watch this film in one or the other. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. This movie was really good. Um, Way more than I thought I would ever possibly like this movie. It just caught me. It just hit me. I think it's a gorgeously shot film. I actually am kind of sad that I didn't get to see this in a big screen theater because there's some shots and some scales that are just phenomenal to watch. I think the young lady who played Mulan does a really solid job. I think there are some moments where some of the emotional beats don't quite hit, but I think that's because she's trying to play as a boy. When you start doing layers where you're playing as a boy, but you have this other thing going on, it becomes a lot to deal with and process. But I think she does a good job, and I think the film works as a whole because she is a very entertaining and interesting conduit throughout. I think the action sequences work. I think the overall heartbeat of the film is there. So these live action remakes fall into three tiers for me. There's the Beauty and the Beast, the Aladdin, and the Lion Kings, which are shot for shot remakes, where you can literally just get a director off the street, like, "Hey, you, can you come shoot what someone else did that we paid them before, but aren't paying again?" That's an entirely different story. Can you come shoot this shot for shot the exact same way? We're not going to change anything. You can cast whoever you want. You can do whatever you want, but literally don't break from this. And I don't think there's not much art that goes into taking what someone else did and just making a carbon copy of that, in my personal opinion. And even as good as you can be, where I think Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast succeed, as good as you can be, you will never be able to. You can nail and check off all boxes and do everything correctly, but you will always pale in comparison to the original. Lion King's a little different. I think it's the worst of those type of films, but there's a lot of technology that I think John Favreau created and has done, so that sort of gets a pass as far as that. Then there's the other another tier of these Disney films, something like Dumbo, where you take the IP and you completely change the story and it has absolutely nothing to do with anything that you've seen in the original film, um, and it just becomes sort of bland and boring and not interesting at all. Then there's the third tier, which is for me the sweet spot. Something like Jungle Book, where it takes a bare bones cartoon and fleshes it out and adds beats here and just gives it a little bit more oomph. That works for me. That's why that's always been my favorite of the live action remakes. And I think Mulan now is my number two of the live action remakes, which is shocking to me. Um, Again, I don't have the story. I mean, I don't have the film in my brain to go off of, but I do know the story of Mulan. And I think they nail that well, and I think they take it instead of doing quote unquote the Disney version of that. While it is still a Disney product, it feels like a much more serious tone. It's a lot more grounded, a lot more realistic. It is not as bright. They're color. It's colorful. The palette is very colorful. It's a beautiful film, but it's just not as vibrant, and not as much. There's no levity really at all. It's very serious. It's a war torn film, and you feel all of that. And I think that works for me as a 39-year-old male without a kid. That is where the problem comes in, though. I think this film doesn't know its audience or doesn't know what audience it's trying to do. If I'm correct, that Disney Mulan film seemed like it was going for kids five and up. This movie starts at like 9, maybe 10 and up. But I think you stop at like the 14, 15 range because this just stops being interesting. There's two problems that are happening. One, to be a war torn film and to be as serious and take yourself as one note, there's absolutely no blood. So as beautiful as the action sequences are, it's very dull and the bite has been taken out of it, which is fine because it is a Disney movie, so you don't want to have that. But on this on the flip side of that, there is no levity, there's no humor, there's no comedy. It is all just dry. It is a very dry film, and so if you're making this for a kids film, you've alienated that entire audience because there's nothing that they're going to check out. There's nothing that grabs them or brings them in or keeps them in. And so you're making this for a very small 10 to 14-year-old audience, primarily females. And that audience, if they had any affinity for the original Mulan, they'll look at this and be like, that's not my Mulan. There's no Mushu, there's no this. So there's an automatic rebuttal against anything that shows on screen. Even though it's really well done, people just don't care. You've pissed them off, which is a weird thing to do. I don't know why the choice was made. I like it, but I don't think a 39-year-old male is the audience that Mulan is going for. Like, this isn't supposed to be a dramatic-esque film, but it winds up being that, and it works as that, and it works for me as that. But I think if you are a parent and you have Disney Plus and you are seeing Mulan on there and you want to rent it for your kids, I think you'd be in a better spot to rent the animated or look at the animated film versus this, because I just don't think your kids in that 5 to 9 range are going to have the attention span to stick with this version, as well as they would something that is a much more palatable version for them. Which, when you throw in all the other things, I think that's why Mulan is getting some of the pushback that it is, with the lead actress saying what she says. It not being something that is so much more similar to the original, the release date moving all over the place, and then the way that you're releasing it via a subscription service that you didn't have to pay again for. I think there are just a lot of people that are throwing a lot of hate towards Mulan for what is actually a really good film and a really well done film with an audience that I just don't think exists for whatever reason, for all of the reasons listed. So, for me, I enjoy this movie. It's my second favorite live action film remake for the Disney movies, but I don't have an affinity for the original, and I think this movie has a hard time finding the audience that the original did. But for me, on my scale of one's enough, play it again, Sam, or give me a time stone so I never have to see this film again. For me, this is a play it again, Sam. I really, really enjoyed this movie. And I think, I don't know how I would feel if I had a child and I tried to have them watch this. I think trying to get them to be entertained by this movie would be difficult. But I think the heart and the story and the message of what Mulan means and what this film brings for young women is very important. I just think you need to pick the age of when you show them this version a little more carefully than when you showed them the young ones, the original. But that's it. I'm curious to see what you guys thought about the movie. How did you watch it? Did you watch it through Disney Plus, the subscription stuff, or did you find other means? I won't tell. But I'm curious to see how this was received by you. Did you like the movie? And are you pro 98 animated version or pro 2020 live action version? Go ahead and leave your comments in the comments below. If you haven't, you can follow us on Twitter at Hollywood80i, or you can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast by the same name that is on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts. We're there. But, like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.